Okay, great. Okay, so now we will move to the Q&A. We have 4 questions. I will start in alphabetical order. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond, and then once everyone has gone, we can come back for a 1-minute rebuttal. We do ask again that you are mindful of, the interpreter. After the second question, we will be taking a 5-minute break to give our interpreter a break. And yes, so in the first question, we will be doing Alex, Carlos, Roberto, and Raul will be our order. And this will be about the 710. Yes, please don't, sorry for our little janky timer. This is the best I could find. So folks will be getting 2 minutes. We will be starting with Alex. And the first question is, the 710 South Freeway project, after 2 decades, has finally been suspended in its current form. And Caltrans and Metro are in the process of setting goals for a new environmental review process. Given that the previous project alternative that was rejected by the EPA included displacement of homes and businesses, no local or targeted hiring measures, and no dedication to zero-emission trucks, please explain your priorities for the 710 project and your plan to engage and include residents in project development. So Alex, you will be first, and I will go ahead and unmute you. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. So this project was on take around $6 billion to, improve the whole 710 corridor and freeway, from the port all the way, up north. So with that $6 billion, instead of, constructing new lanes, which would have displaced hundreds of families, houses, and businesses, instead, we could use that money that they were going to use to modernize freeway in a way towards the port, create incentives and use that money to kind of push a program of zero emission trucks, kind of provide incentive to owner operating truckers where the city helps them, get it, upgrade the trucks from, that's releasing greenhouse emissions to, zero emission trucks, helping businesses, transfer and integrate new systems to, transform their fleet to these zero emission trucks. And then just create programs, creating programs to kind of, give these residents in the perimeter of, the diesel dead zone, solar power, and, so they could, install better, effective energy, technology. They could have better, air filters, AC. So kind of using this money that was going to be used and or utilized for this project to kind of enhance everything that we could without, kind of displacing, the community, which is predominant, community minorities, Latinos and Blacks.
Okay, thank you have 20 seconds if you like.
Oh, no, I'm fine.
Okay. Thank you, Alex. Okay, so next up we have Carlos. Whitney, if you can reset the timer, and then I will go ahead and unmute you.
Great question. I have always opposed the expansion of the 710 freeway and all freeways and all highways. What many don't realize is that there's such a thing as that's called induced demand, the law of induced demand. It applies to all sorts of principles, but particularly to freeways and highways. Every single freeway and highway enlargement by highway authorities has always resulted in failure. The biggest one is the KT freeway in Houston, Texas, where that freeway was expanded, I believe, to 27 lanes, and it was horrible. It didn't result in a reduction in traffic or a speeding up of traffic. In fact, it resulted in the opposite. So from going from 4 lanes to 27 lanes was about the most horrible thing that you could do. Same thing in the 405 freeway, same thing in the 710 freeway. It's not going to help. It will bring additional traffic, and you know, what people don't realize is that we are in the area that has the worst ozone pollution in the nation. And that comes directly from the truck traffic, as well as you know, burning diesel fuel, as well as the cars. The solution to that is to increase the TEU fee, which is a fee.
All right, sorry, Carlos, you're out of time. I will, yes, everyone's gets the same amount of time. So next we have Roberto. I'm going to, let me find you and unmute you. Okay.
Hi, thank you. Over the years, I sat on the I-710 committee that basically brought forward various alternatives to the expansion of the freeway. One of them was Community Alternative 7. That was basically to get rid of the expansion of the freeway, not address any kinds of other alternative ways of expanding the freeway to allow more trucks, more cars. That was one of the goals, is just to not have cars riding alongside trucks. So the current project now acknowledges that the 710 freeway is not feasible. It's not expandable. It takes away homes. It takes away businesses. It breaks up communities. And so the current effort to eliminate it is right on with everything that I have been pushing for. You know, to be opposed to the expansion of 710 freeway and any other kinds of expansion that increases truck traffic is one thing, but to actually do something about it is another. I voted against having the expansion of the freeway. I voted against having any kinds of construction that would put vehicles right by side of trucks. So what's going on now is a perfect plan to engage the community, to get their input, to get them engaged and involved in being able to develop a plan that is going to be much more workable for them, that'll keep them housed, that'll keep businesses growing, and that actually enhances the environment, because we're looking at being able to get trucks off the freeway onto other side streets and stop from polluting our communities. And when it comes down to enhancing our transportation and cleaning our air, that's what we need to do. We need to acknowledge that we need more rail, and dock to rail is about the best way we can move more container traffic over. Thank you.
Thank you, Roberto. Okay, next we have Raul. Let me find you and I will unmute you.
Well, I'm not agree with that expansion. That's big money to spend for that extension of the highway 710, right? And I think the residents and the people are affected with that expansion, and we have to focus mostly on the housing project, because housing rental today is very expensive nowadays. Even the house, when you buy the house, it's very expensive here in California, especially here in West Long Beach. Very expensive nowadays. I think the cities would focus on the low housing project. Like in the Philippines, there are low housing condominium for the poor people, or those who can survive with their not so big salaries. I think the city should focus on the housing project, low housing project in this Long Beach area, and there should be a survey for all the residents in all people or residences that affected that expansion of the highway. There should be a survey. If the people agree with it, it depends. I think the voice of the people is the voice of God. And I think that's the priority that we should do, the housing project, not that expansion of the 701. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Raul. So we'll move to our second question. The order for this will be Carlos, Roberto, Raul, y Alex. And the question is, Long Beach is home to one of 2 municipal incinerators in the state, with ours being sited in the west side near the port. Additionally, we have a poor waste management system and our streets see a constant flow of litter. Waste transfer stations are sited in working class communities. Given that the incinerator costs significantly more to maintain than the profits and energy it generates, what changes, if any, do you think are needed to our current system of waste and resource management? And can the money we spend on the incinerator be used differently? And so, Carlos, you will be first. And I will go ahead and unmute you.
Yeah, there's a reason why why we only have 2 municipal incinerators left in California, and that's because they're inefficient, they're wasteful, and they create emissions that are extremely difficult to clean from the air, to scrub from the smokestacks. So I completely oppose maintaining the SURF incinerator for any longer than it's necessary to shut it down. What a lot of people don't realize is one of the things that you mentioned, which is that it doesn't generate that it's cost inefficient in terms of generating electricity. But the other thing is that the SURF actually burns waste that is generated by other cities. So there's no reason why those of us who live downwind from the SURF have to breathe in all the waste that is generated by other cities. The real solution is a zero waste program, and I think we ought to be spending a lot to educate and to help facilitate a zero waste program. That's really the only solution.
Thank you, Carlos. Okay, Roberto, you're next. I will find you. And okay, there you go.
Thank you. I lived in West Long Beach and I live in Wrigley. And so I have been directly affected by what happens when the air is dirty. My wife has asthma, my son has asthma, and hopefully my daughter has asthma. Hopefully my grandkids will not. When I first heard about Assembly Bill 1857, which is a Cristina Garcia bill to get rid of the incinerators up and down the state, I studied. I mean, I actually went to our energy resources people to find out what is it that SURF actually does. It's the Southeast Refuse Recovery Facility. And I toured it, and I found out that all the after effects of burning trash is not what people think it is. I would recommend that Carlos and anybody who is opposed to SURF take a tour, and you'll see that it's not exactly what people think it is. Actually, the waste that comes out of the smoke top is like a light mist. They have so many different filters in that facility that what is exhumed is very little. You can barely even tell it's there. When you take the freeway over the bridge to go to San Pedro, you don't even know the facility is there because there's no smoke. The trash that is taken there from other jurisdictions actually produces energy that can provide electricity for 30,000 homes here in Long Beach. The current efforts to create organic waste and to treat organic waste is actually one that we really want to support, because that would get rid of a lot of other types of trash. And you're talking about zero waste. Zero waste is far away from now. We have to do a lot of recycling, and we're not prepared for that. We don't have the facilities to do that. And one of the things about Assembly Bill 1857 is that it's an unfunded mandate. It wants us to stop a facility, and yet where do we take our trash? To landfills and create more methane. I cannot support that.
Okay, thank you, Roberto. Okay, next we have Raul. I will find you. Thank you. And unmute you. Let's see. There you go.
Can you please repeat the question because I'm not familiar with that question?
Sure. Yes. So the question is, given that the incinerator costs significantly more to maintain than the profits and energy it generates, what changes, if any, do you think are needed to our current system of waste and resource management? And can the money we spend on the incinerator be used differently?
Can you define what is oxygenator?
Yes, the incinerator is where we send our trash to be burned.
Okay.
Mhm.
Oh, it's interesting. I think uh, is that Mr. Cortez that talk about against? I think I agree with him that we should not put more on that particular as oscillator because I think it damaged our environment. It caused a lot of I think pollution in terms of waste and I think maybe they will the city should think another way to have a better alternative for that so that the waste will be avoided. That's it. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Raul. And next we have Alex. I'm going to find you. Okay.
Yeah, so the SERP, it's an outdated idea that was meant to be greener when it was constructed. You know, it was meant to reduce the greenhouse of gases that are typically released from landfills. So, you know, it's a legacy system, like a lot of systems in the logistical industry that are polluting, you know, the environment. Now, that being said, you know, while I don't support it, you know, and I don't, you know, support the reduction of it, you know, closing it, you just won't make the waste go away. You know, like Roberto said, you know, we kind of need it. We need it now. We're not ready to, you know, to go to zero waste just because, you know, there's so many programs that we got to pass. You know, we got to pass programs and enable the community to recycle more, to think about composting, you know, creating these type of programs until, you know, we're ready to kind of shut it down. You know, it takes millions of dollars. You know, this facility is taking millions of dollars from the city. You know, so having you know a deadline, timeline where, you know, the city's being aggressive towards these programs to reduce the waste, to eliminate waste, to go zero, you know, waste as a city, you know, it's what's needed. You know, we got to enable these programs, we got to push, but for the time being, we have to keep it up to date. You know, we got to put in some money to improve it, to, you know, to um, reduce the toxic chemicals that it's releasing. But for the meantime, we have to put money in to keep it running so we can reduce the waste that we have. Overall, you know, it's like I said, it's a legacy system. It's outdated. It was meant as a greener alternative, but it's outdated. So it's time for us to kind of push to a more organic recycling center. You know, once we're at that point, once we're ready. But for the meantime, you know, I'll say yes. We have to work on creating better programs.
Okay, thank you, Alex. Okay, with that, we've come to 2 questions. Now we will take a brief break so our interpreter can have a break. We will come back at 7:15. So please go and grab your water, attend to your needs, and we will see folks back at 7:15. If you are having any issues with your Zoom, then please email me or let us know in the chat and we can help you out. Thanks, everyone. Okay, everyone, welcome back. Thank you for taking the break with us. Appreciate it. It's important to give our interpreters some space. And so I hope everyone is back. We will resume with our questions. We'll be going into the third question. And the order for this will be Roberto, Raul, Alex, and Carlos. So Roberto will be first. And the question is, it's no secret that the West Side is home to higher rates of pollution exposure and health burdens than East Long Beach. With the ports, refineries, ICTF rail yard, 405 and 710, and a large industrial area south of Anaheim, residents continue to have reduced quality of life issues due to pollution. What health protective policies and plans do you support and will advocate for in your position? And what investments or improvements do you think can be brought to the 7th District, and in particular, the Santa Fe corridor, in order to improve quality of life for residents? So Roberto, you are first. Go ahead and find you. Okay.
Thank you, and welcome back. Well, when it comes to pollution and public health issues related to pollution and air quality, we could always do more. I mean, there's never enough. And we have to remember that the Port of Long Beach has been there for a very, very long time, and it's growing and will continue to grow. And so we'll continue to be challenged with issues of air quality, port traffic, and as well as congestion, not only along our freeways, but along 710, along Santa Fe. I've always met with our police department and talk about what's going on in the Santa Fe corridor. I've asked them to patrol and get trucks off of Santa Fe, to get trucks out of Willow when they park there. And they not only do they provide and add to the air quality of the West Long Beach area, but they destroy our streets. They're so heavy that the asphalt is uneven, and anybody who rides down the Santa Fe corridor, you can see it. So what I've always wanted to do is make sure that we keep our streets clean and that we eliminate as much traffic as we can. I'm working with the port to also introduce a climate action and adaptation policy, the CAP. That is to clean the air, to get more electric cars into electric vehicles coming in and out of the port. And they have what they call now a Tier 4 engine, which is a locomotive that helps with getting dock to rail. So what it does is when a cargo of TEU is unloaded, it's put on this Tier 4, and it goes on into the trains that take them to the facility. So our goal is to have zero emissions, not only in our ports, but in our freeways and byways. That's the goal that we want to reach. Thank you.
Thank you, Roberto. Okay, next is Raul. I'll find you. Okay.
It's a lost case.
I have been 28 years in Long Beach, and I saw that port many times. I passed there, and really there's a pollution over there. And even here in West Long Beach, because of that port, I think we should provide anti-pollution, like planting more trees and more plants and vegetables in our neighborhood, so that it adds means this project will decrease the pollution, because they combat the pollution with these plants, trees, vegetables. We use that in the Philippines. We do that to clean the air. In the Philippines, the people there are always planting trees and planting vegetables and plants, so that the air quality in the environment are clean, and it's nice for the health. And if ever I win, I will tell the neighborhood in West Long Beach that they should do that, so that although the port will not be erased there, because it's permanently there already for long time, I need to have projects like planting trees and vegetables and plants so that pollution will be decreased. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Raul. Next, we have Alex.
Hey, Taylor, could you repeat the question real quick?
Sure. The question is, let me feedback. Okay, the question is, what health protective policies and plans do you support and will advocate for in your position? And what investments or improvements do you think can be brought to the 7th District and in particular the Santa Fe corridor in order to improve quality of life for residents?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest programs I'll push is for a air monitoring program, essentially to collect like real-time comparative data, and so we could educate the residents of the community. I think this is one of the biggest issues, that the community doesn't really know what they're breathing in. They know there's pollution, but they don't understand how bad it is. So pushing a program to enable them and educate them on what's going on. That way they could voice, that way they could fight, in City Hall. One of the biggest issues is, especially on the west side, is that, people don't vote, because they don't have the tools. They don't have the education to vote. They don't know how to vote. They don't know how to have their voices be heard, especially when it comes to air pollution. This is all they know. I grew up almost 100 feet away from the freeway. The biggest one for me, one of the biggest thing was that, truckers use PCH as the main route to the port, instead of going out to an or Shreveport. A lot of them use, PCH. You drive down through PCH, it's destroyed. There's potholes everywhere. It hasn't been fixed, and they just continue to drive. So, I think would be one of the main things I'll be just to enable the community. So, there's power and in quantity. So the more people that know and understand what's going on, you will have a bigger voice. One thing that Roberto said I would support would be, pushing all city vehicles to go electric. That's all city transportation and vehicles. Even if it reduces small footprint, it'll be big. It's start. And then something I'll do for to Santa Fe to increase the the quality of life for the neighborhood. The biggest thing is that truckers aren't allowed there, so making sure that Long Beach PD continues to enforce this to the streets, but then also to beautify the neighborhood, the businesses.
Thank you, Alex. Next, we have Carlos.
Our Clean Air Action Plan is very strange the way it's created, because it favors the main shipping companies. It favors the polluters. The TEU fee, which is the fee that is charged per container in order to help facilitate the transition to electric trucks, is barely $10. It was proposed as 20, then it got cut down to 10. I think it should go to $100 or $200 per TEU. That will raise an insignificant cost to any goods and services. It will be an insignificant cut to profits, and it will allow us to shorten the time before a full electrification from 2035 to probably within 3 years. Even better than that, our trains currently operate at barely 36% capacity. If we were to double that capacity to 66% or 70%, we could do away with all trucks except for local trucks. Obviously, the biggest issue, the level of ozone pollution produced by that we absorbed in this area is because of those trucks. So that's one of the first things I would do is increase TEU fee to $100 to $200, electrify the trains.
Okay, thank you, Carlos. Okay. All right, we are going to move on to our fourth and last question, and the order for this will be Raul, Alex, Carlos, and Roberto. And the question is, housing affordability and habitability is a huge problem and has been for many years. What policies and programs do you support that will help reduce the cost burden on renters, address slumlords, and assist homeowners who struggle to keep up, particularly for folks who are elderly, low income, on fixed incomes, or have mixed immigration status households? So Raul, you are first. Let me just find you. And where you are, there you are.
I think the first priority is to have a low housing project. That was I said before. The housing project for the people, the residences that can afford not so high rental expenses monthly, and that low housing was already happened in the Philippines, like low housing condominium for the residents like that. It's a great effect in the people of the Philippines in Manila. They are happy with the project of the mayor there because of that low housing condominium, and the people there, they can afford the low housing condominium, and it's really a big help for them, and they will pay only not so high rental. So that's what the city in Manila did, not so high rental that the people can afford. Maybe we can do it here also in Long Beach. We have low housing condominium too, so that the people can afford it. And if I'm working in Primerica insurance, life insurance, if the people have problem with their rentals, they can join me in my business as Primerica Life Insurance. You are all welcome in our business. Those who are listening, who don't have a part-time or full-time job, that will help the rental of the community in West Long Beach. In my business, it's a good business.
Okay, thank you, Raul. Alex, you're next. Alex, are you?
For this, I would support rentals or and landlord assistance.
I'm sorry, I think I cut you off. You can please restart.
Taylor?
Yes, we can hear you now. Okay, I think, did we lose him? Okay, I think maybe he's gonna rejoin. We'll just give it a second to see if he'll rejoin. Okay, well, to respect everyone's time, we'll keep going. Okay, Carlos, you are next. Let me find you.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question again, please?
Sure. So what policies and programs do you support that will help reduce the cost burden on renters, address slumlords, and assist homeowners who struggle to keep up, particularly for folks who are elderly, low income, on fixed incomes, and have mixed immigration status households?
Okay, so I've worked on affordable housing for a few decades, including homeless housing and very low income housing, seniors housing, et cetera. And one of the things that worries me about cities is that they try to increase the number of housing and units, and each affordable housing unit is these days costs about $600,000, and it takes about 5 years minimum to produce. It would be a far bigger bang for the buck if cities instead provided or expanded a program similar to Section 8 housing, where every dollar that comes in that would be normally geared towards creating more housing would go to subsidizing or to providing a supplement to rentals. During the homeless persons count, I found a lot of people that said if I had only had another $200, $300, $400 to pay the rent increases, we would not be out in the street. But so it's important to address the cause and not the symptom. And one of the causes of homelessness, at least according to the homeless count, is that we have gentrification and displacement that is favored by the current batch of politicians who are beholden to the developers. So I would address gentrification and displacement first, and rental supplements second.
Okay, thank you, Carlos. Okay, Alex, I see you have rejoined us. I am going to reread the question for you. The question is, what policies and programs do you support that will help reduce the cost burden on renters, address slumlords, and assist homeowners who struggle to keep up, particularly for folks who are elderly, low income, on fixed incomes, and have mixed immigration status households? So if we could spotlight Alex, and I will unmute you.
Yeah, so I think that some of the primary programs that I would be supporting would be renter assistance programs, as well as homeowner assistance programs, especially here in the West Side. The most people be making is around $30,000. That's not much to be on a livable wage. So these programs are crucial for them to make a living, to pay rent, to pay their mortgage so they won't lose their house. So these are the programs that I would be pushing for. Secondly, implementing rental policies, rent control policies. While this isn't the solution to affordable housing, it's needed, especially for slumlords and to landlords who are just trying to get the most benefit with the current industry, or they're increasing rent just because they can. We have no rent control, so if they could, they're gonna do it. If they could get more money out of it, they will. So supporting these kind of programs is gonna be very crucial, especially in our neighborhoods, especially in the West Side, where the population is more towards the low income side. Aside from that, I think those are the two biggest programs I would be pushing for.
Thank you, Alex. Okay, now we will go back and revisit the 4 topics and have folks give the chance to have a 1-minute rebuttal. This is not a space to have personal attacks. This is a space to discuss the policy positions. So if you would like to address something that another candidate brought up, then this is the space to do that from a policy perspective. And the first one will be on the 710. And the order for this was Alex, Carlos, Roberto, and Raul. And so we will have 1 minute for this. And if you do not have to use it, you're free to use your time if you choose. So Alex, you are first. Go ahead and unmute you.
Yeah, definitely. I understand some candidates say that freeways aren't the best answer, or there's alternative routes. And reality is that there's always gonna be traffic. We take out the freeway, then the traffic's gonna move to neighborhoods, which would be even worse. So the fact is that we need the 710 as of now. LA, the LA LB port is one of the biggest ports in the world. It brings in over 35% of all goods in the US. So this is a crucial freeway. We need it. The fact is that we need to push to modernize this freeway so we could keep traffic off the streets. You know, you move up closer to the inbound on 710 and you see all the streets in the neighborhoods that are packed, they're just full. The biggest thing is because due to trailers. But that being said, you know, we got to push to try what we could do better.
Thank you, Alex. Okay, Carlos, you're next. Oops, I'm sorry, please ignore that. Okay,
I think it was maybe in 2017 when Mr. Uranga was chairperson of the city's 3-member I-710 Oversight Committee. They unanimously approved alternative 5C for the 710 freeway expansion. You know, so this is a rebuttal to his argument that he's used before, including in past elections, that he voted for the against the expansion of the 710 freeway. In addition to that, he voted to approve this very low TEU fee, which would have served to electrify the trucks. Unfortunately, by the time.
okay, thank you, Carlos. Okay, Roberto, you are next.
Well, you know, I really don't have a rebuttal to this. I think we all agree that the I-710 is a big issue when it comes to pollution, when it comes to congestion, when it comes to having trucks on our highways and byways. We're all in agreement. And regardless of what I took in the past, it's done, it's over. There's not gonna be any expansion. I supported that. I supported community alternative 7. We're in the right place we need to be, but what we do need to do is improve our egress and ingress into freeways, our exits and our entrances. If we can improve on those, I think we could limit a lot more accidents that happen on 710 that always keeps it backed up and keeps trucks on the road, polluting our community because they're stuck and they're standstill on the 710 freeway. That's what we need to improve. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Roberto. Raul, you are next. Oh, wait, Raul, we haven't started your time yet. Okay, there you are.
As what I said, I'm not favor with the expansion because it costs a lot of money and affected the people of resident of West Long Beach. I'm concerned about the people where they will live if the houses will be destroyed for that expansion. You know, renting houses nowadays is very expensive and very hard to find a new place to live. I myself living with my brother, with my 2 brothers and my mom. I could not afford to have my own house. That's why I'm studying very hard so that I can find a better job. And I'm very, very much concerned with the people. I think there should be as what I said, there should be a survey where all the people in the West Long Beach, if they agreed with that expansion or not, the voice of the people is the voice of God.
Thank you, Raul. Okay, going to the second question. This was in regards to incineration, our waste management system, and our resources. Carlos, Roberto, Raul, and Alex is the order. So we will start with Carlos. Carlos, you haven't, you're on mute.
My apologies for that. One of the things that Mr. Uranga said is that if you take a look at the exhaust coming from the incinerator, it's not visible. This is, you know, just about anybody who pays attention to this understands that pollution, even the worst kinds of pollution, are not, it isn't necessary to see them in order to assess the damage. So, he was mentioning about his wife and I believe his son having asthma. I mean, many of us here, we have the highest incidence of asthma. I have asthma. I have neurological disorders. I have cancer. And so I know what it's like in the flesh, and I know that it's not that part of it is due to the incinerator, part of it is due to the freeways. But where there's a will, there's a way.
Okay, thank you, Carlos. Roberto, you are next. Let me find.
I reiterate my request. Tour the facility, check it out. You'll see that the amount of trash that's being burned is phenomenal, and it turns into energy. It energizes 30,000 homes in Long Beach. Plus, it's a revenue source for the city, and it's a source that helps other cities clean up their trash. What's the alternative? Landfills, organic waste going to landfills, creating more methane. Yeah, there's a cumulative effect, perhaps, but that facility catches 99.5% of all emissions that goes in there. The filters and everything that goes in there is so compact that the effects are very minimal, very small. Take the tour. I'll go with you and join me, and you'll see how different it really is. Thank you.
Thank you, Roberto. Next is Raul.
What's the question again?
Yes, this is your opportunity to rebut your other candidates on the topic of incineration and zero waste and resource management.
You know, this is my first time to hear that oxygenator, that thing. I'm not familiar with it. I think whatever Mr. Oranga said, because I voted for him before for many times, I think he's right what he's saying. I agree with him. What he's saying, that's it.
Okay, thank you, Raul. Next up is Alex.
I have no rebuttal.
Okay, easy peasy. Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to the third topic. And this was about pollution exposure and thinking about what improvements can be brought to the 7th District and the Santa Fe corridor to improve quality of life for residents. So the order for this will be Roberto, Raul, Alex, and Carlos. So we'll start with Roberto.
No question, we can always do more. And we are doing more, working hard with our port for the CAP, the Climate Action Adaptation Program. Also working with the truckers to get more electrified trucks in there, and working with get more electrification. But with electrification, we need to understand that there are jobs involved, there are people's lives involved. And the more automation we get in the port, the more opportunity we have for people to get retrained, retooled, to keep themselves in the middle class so that we can live and work and play in Long Beach. So we have to do it responsibly. We have to handle our growth responsibly, and we have to handle how we handle our goods movement responsibly so that we can clean up our air. It didn't happen overnight, and it's not going to take overnight to clean it up, but we need to make progress towards it, and that will work for it.
Thank you, Roberto. Next up, we have Raul.
Again, I agree with Mr. Oranga, and I push the planting of the trees and vegetable and plants to decrease the pollution in the port. And I push also the electric car because I'm gonna buy next year one of electric car because I know that it eliminates pollution, and I think the government is pushing the electric car nowadays. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Raul. Next up, we'll have Alex.
I'll keep this very short. I agree that this is not gonna take, well, it's gonna take, some good time to fix. But the fact that, in the past 20 years, there hasn't been no real action been taken to, combat the environmental issues here in, District 7, that says a lot. It's the fact that you're here or someone's able to say that, oh, we're gonna fix this, but the fact that in the last 20 years, no action has been taken, that says a lot. Actions speak more than words. So I mean, we have to take action now. It's it's been too long where everyone's being affected. Our generations are being affected, our past, our future, everything's being generation. So we have to take action now.
Thank you. Thank you, Alex. Next up, we will have Carlos.
I agree with Alex that nothing's been done for the last. I agree with Alex that nothing has been done for the last few years. Certainly, Mr. Uranga's tenure, and it's easy to say I promise to do this, but if you haven't done it in 8 years, it's not going to happen. I think an increase in the TEU fees will go a long way, not only towards electrifying and increasing the capacity of the train, but also trains to move goods, but also to retrain the workers. But beyond that, there is no barrier separating the 7th district from the rest of Long Beach or the rest of the world. And when you do things like you vote for the export of the dirtiest fuels, coal and petroleum coke from our ports, you're harming all of us. When you do things like vote for the drilling of 120 oil wells in our.
Okay, thank you, Carlos. Okay, the last topic was housing affordability and habitability issues. The order for this will be Raul, Alex, Carlos, and Roberto. So Raul, we will go to you first. And okay.
I don't know if there's a vacant space for housing project for West Long Beach. I don't know that because I'm not. I don't know how big is West Long Beach. I think from Magnolia to Santa Fe, going there. I don't know if there's a space for low housing condominium that I'm want to saying a while ago. I don't know, but I think there should be a regulation to the rental should be not so high for the resident who earn only 30,000 a year or less, or it depends. There should be a regulation that depends on the income of the residences, and I think it should be pushed.
Thank you, Raul. Next is Alex.
I mean, on this topic, I think that we could do more. Long Beach was one of the last coastal cities in California to be affordable, compared to, our neighboring cities or coastal cities. So the fact that, these high developer took advantage of that, kind of taking advantage of the city to build, their high apartment complexes downtown, to kind of push, to gain benefit, to try to increase the housing market. And that comes with the city and the politicians involved, the leadership that, that partnered up with these high developers. There's more that we could do, push more policies to make sure that we don't have these developers, control our city. We have to push more, be aggressive to make sure that this city stays in the hands of, the people that are born and raised here, the people that want to stay here, instead of pushing us out.
Thank you, Alex. Next is Carlos.
Um, I go back to something that I addressed earlier, which is that we need to address the cause and not the symptom. That is, we need to address issues of gentrification and displacement, which is something that our current batch of elected leaders have always supported. Our district has the highest level of housing density and the highest level of unit overcrowding, and that's not going to get solved unless we address the previous issue. I believe we should get rid of Costa-Hawkins because it is applied unequally. It favors the big wealthy developers that fund our current batch of politicians.
Thank you, Carlos. Next up, we have Roberto.
I really don't have a rebuttal to that question because I think any and all ideas that can address housing and how we can get more people into housing and affordable housing, how we can build more homes. Recently, the city received $4.5 million from the state of California to help us address housing, to help us build more housing and affordable housing. We have a housing unit coming up in downtown Long Beach for workers. So, I mean, I certainly embrace all fresh and new ideas to get more housing into Long Beach and affordable housing, especially. The fact that I mean, there's this accusation about developers being in the pockets of politicians. I'd like to see that. I haven't seen a dime from a developer. So I mean, that's all conjecture. That's all it's kind of the air type of thing. Not true. But anyway, let's work together on this.
Okay, thank you, Roberto. And that concludes the questions that we have for all of the candidates. Right now, we will move into the Q&A. I want to thank you all for hanging in there so far. If folks are able, they can drop their questions in the chat. You may also raise your hand to ask a question. I will remind folks that we need to keep this to a question that can be concise and precise and that can apply to all of the candidates that they are able to answer. If you get a little unruly, I will unmute you or mute you. And yeah, let's all be, make sure that everyone can enjoy the space and walk away with a lot of information. Okay, there was a question earlier about banks. I think that is a great question that someone asked. What can we do about getting banks on the west side? I know we have the B of A on Willow, but west of the 710, there's no banking institutions. Do folks have any plans or ideas on how we can get banking and financial support to folks west of the 710? And we can go in the same order that we've done before, which is alphabetical and carousel from there. Folks will have a minute to answer these questions. And we will start with Alex.
Yeah, I think this goes back to a bigger topic of, community inequality. It's not only banks that we're suffering here in the West Side, it's also, clinics, pharmacies, for the senior citizens, they have to go across a bridge just to go to the closest pharmacy. If you're 70, 80 years old, how easy is it going to be for you to go out there? If you're not driving, you don't have anyone to take you out there. It's a bigger issue. Bringing in more businesses to the West Side, that's what we need, to bring more equity, bring in the equity, bring in all these resources to the neighborhood, and it starts with banks, but it's also with clinics, pharmacies, equity centers. It's the things that, we're lacking, resources here in the neighborhood. So just being aggressive, pushing, bringing more equality to our neighborhood. That's what we need.
Thank you, Alex. Next, we'll go to Carlos.
I completely agree with Alex. it isn't just about banks. Everything that he mentioned, as well as major supermarket chains, and in particular the things that have to do with healthy eating, an urgent care center. How about an urgent care center? But one of the bigger things that I think about is that in order to attract businesses to the West Side, we need to think about what sorts of ways can we make it easier for those businesses, and how about eliminating business license fees or the fees to set up those businesses? How about speeding up the process? That's where equity comes in, speeding up the process and making it easier financially for those businesses to set up. And how about doing away with Measure 8, the biggest sale?
Thank you, Carlos. Next up is Roberto.
You know, when it comes down to the West Long Beach area, we're separated from the rest of the city by the river and by the 710 freeway. So development in the West Side has always been lax and low, poor and coming. Because why? Do you know that Santa Fe Avenue is zoned mostly residential? Do you know that Willow Street west of the 710 freeway is zoned mostly residential? So we have a zoning issue here. I'm working with our Department of Development Services to look at it. I put a moratorium on any more building on Santa Fe and Willow Street's corridors, so that we could revisit what's going on there. We can't bring a bank, we can't bring a pharmacy, we can't bring any kind of health services there if it's not zoned correctly for that. It's mostly zoned. It needs to be zoned more commercial. And once we get the zoning correct and in line with what we can do to get more businesses out here, we'll be successful. That's what we need to work on, and that's what I'm working on.
Thank you, Roberto. Next, we have Raul.
I agree with Alex and Carlos. Is it Carlos? Yeah. What they're saying, and I have a complaint from a voter. He was complaining about the permit to animal, especially the dog. He said that it's very, very expensive. Why is very expensive, the permit? It's only for animal. It's hard for him to pay it. That's why he's complaining to me. And he talked to me. And I think that permit should be reasonable, even in every business, it should be reasonable, even in the animals or other permit, it should be reasonable. That's what I want to push through.
Okay, thank you, Raul. I want to go to the Spanish channel. I see Maria dropped her question in the chat. Annette, is Maria able to unmute, or are you able to share her question?
Yes, I'm able to translate if you like.
Yes, please.
My name is Maria Reyes. Question: in what way do you think you will support organizations that are always fighting for the environment? Thank you.
Thank you, Annette. Okay, and for this, we will go with Carlos, Roberto, Raul, and Alex. So we will start with Carlos.
I have always supported organizations that fight for the environment. My first environmental project was in 1974. And soon after I had moved into this district. And currently I am a member of the Sierra Club, and I am on the executive committee. I'm an alternate on the executive committee. I am also a member and a senior mentor to the youth-led Sunrise movement. I support East Yards whenever I can, even though I'm not able to participate in the meetings. I support its actions, and I speak and I testify in support of their actions, such as in the recent fight against SCIG. Anyway, other.
Thank you, Carlos. Next, we have Roberto.
Good question. Recently, the city of Long Beach received American Recovery Payment Acts or something like that. What it is basically is millions of dollars given to the city so that they can distribute that to nonprofits, so that nonprofits can provide the services that are much needed in the community, such as food distributions, vaccines, other services that are very important to our communities, and that can only be provided or can best be provided by nonprofits. So we're addressing that. I myself personally, I have what we call an office holder account that I raise money in order to distribute and send out to nonprofits to support them on their organizations through lunch programs, through distributions, through scholarships. So I mean, in regards to nonprofits, definitely support.
Thank you, Roberto. Next, we have Raul.
Can you say the question again? I don't know the question. What is the question?
Yes, the question was, what can you do or do you support organizations that do environmental work?
Yes, I support that organization that about environmental work. You know, environment is very important nowadays. We should have clean air, clean water, clean environment. Our garbage should be collected rightly every week. I'm so concerned with the garbage. Sometimes the collector is not on time to collect the garbage, and you know, the garbage stay there at the back of our house, smells not good, and it takes their long time, the air will be polluted. So I'm concerned with the environment about that. So I plan to talk to the mayor about that it should be pushed through in the right way. Okay, that's it.
Okay, thank you, Raul. So I see we have a hand from Lee Charlie. If you could please be precise and concise with your question, and also make sure it is a question that all candidates can answer and avoid political attacks, then I will unmute you.
Thank you for all the candidates answering this question, and very important election coming up. My question is, I was doing food delivery and I drove by the Wrigley Greenbelt project, and I noticed a lot of trees were down, a lot of birds were killed, and then I believe the city halted that. So what is your stance on protecting the migratory bird route at the Wrigley Greenbelt project and the tree removal?
Okay, thank you, Lee. So we will go with the order of Roberto, Raul, Alex, and Carlos. So we will start with Roberto. Sorry, let me find you. Okay.
Thank you for that question. You know, I'm a member of the California Coastal Commission, and we've had that issue come up several times with the herons along our coast, and trees being destroyed and birds being unhoused when their nests are destroyed. I would strongly recommend, every time that I hear that, I call Public Works, I call our Western arborist contractors and say, what are you guys doing? Don't you know that it's nesting season? Don't you know that there are birds nesting in those trees? We need to be stronger, however, in finding these contractors, and it's mostly contractors, not our staff, that knock down trees indiscriminately without having any kind of clue that what is taking place and what's living in those cages, in those birds outside in those trees. So if you see something like that, please contact my office. We need to take care of that as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Roberto. Next, we have Raul.
Again, I agree with Mr. Oranga, what he told us. I'm concerned very much with the bird because I have 50 plus parakeets and my brother has 200 plus parakeets and lovebirds, and I have 3 cockatiels, and we are concerned about the health of our animals. And if you and I'm pushing the planting of the trees, and now they were cutting the trees. How come they deal with that? It should not be, because the trees are the food and the shelter of the all kinds of birds. I saw a lot of birds, eagle, hawk in our place in the electric post. They were there, and if you cut the trees, what will happen to them? They should have shelter, food, and good environment to live. Okay, that's it.
Thank you, Raul. Next, we have Alex.
Yeah, I didn't get to answer the last question, but I'll just answer that one quick. So through my experience, he's talking about it, one of the biggest issues with, environmental advocate groups is fighting that upward battle. So, the way I support is, essentially being by a servant leader, being a voice and being an ally for them, in city hall, in politics, and kind of bringing their, issues up, to the table, bringing it to the table where people could see and understand where they're coming from, and just making sure that, they're being heard. Now for the Riverwalk, that's a rare, location here, especially in District 7. We're lacking, green space. We have, the smallest amount of parks. So the fact that, we're cutting these trees down, the fact that we don't have, policies to protect the Riverwalk, that's wrong. We got to be aggressive, like Roberto said. But we have to make sure to, protect it. It's one of a kind that we have here.
Thank you, Alex. Okay, I believe there is another hand, and we'll probably only take 1 or 2 more questions so we can get folks out of here, maybe 3. Okay, I think that I'm going to Canadian. I'm going to unmute you. As a reminder, please make your question applicable to all candidates and keep it to a policy issue. Okay, and you should be able to unmute and ask your question.
Okay, thanks. My question is about when minutes or seconds can mean the difference between life or death. How come there's no real emergency services west of the 710 or the river in West Long Beach, the forgotten side? That's it.
Okay, if I understood your question correctly, you're asking about emergency services west of the 710. And I also apologize if I missed folks being able to answer the last question. Could you please drop that in the chat? I'm just trying to make sure that folks can get their questions answered. So I think in this order, we will go with Raul, Alex, Carlos, and Roberto, and maybe take 1 more question after this. So we'll start with Raul, and the question was about emergency services for the folks west of the 710. And I will unmute you. Let's see. Okay.
Next semester in Cypress College, I will enroll in how to CPR and do emergency if there's death or something going death to a person. If I won, I will encourage the constituents to have a training too. I will start from me, and then I will help all the one interested to join me in my knowledge about the death, how to prevent the death of a person by giving instant remedy like CPR or whatever. And I will always tell my constituent to call 911 immediately when there's happening like that.
Okay, thank you, Raul. Okay, next we will go to Alex.
Yeah, great question. I mean, that's a question I'll be asking too. Why don't we have, that service here in the West Side Long Beach? I think one of the biggest issues will be, like Roberto said, the ordinance zone. And it's also the fact that, there's a lack of property space to build anything there. But, a great idea for this would be, kind of supporting a nonprofit, clinic, a pop-up tent or something where residents that don't have insurance or anything could attend and not worry about finances or, their background being exposed.
Thank you, Alex. Oh, I'm sorry. Please ignore that button. Next is Carlos.
I think it's to have an urgent care center on the Forgotten West Side, as it was called, because that's what it is. But the other aspect of that is, in terms of emergency services, is response times. Currently, Fire Station 9 is closed. It's over in Bixby Knolls, but the closure of that station affects citywide. So we need to get that station back up and running as soon as possible, because that'll result in reduced response times for basically the rest of the West Side. Then I'm wondering if I can have an opportunity to respond to the Wrigley Greenbelt question that I didn't get to answer.
Okay, yes, thank you, Carlos. Yes, I'm gonna circle back to that after this round.
Okay.
And Roberto, you are next.
Carlos has his lines all wrong. Station 9 is out in East Long Beach. It's out there covers CD5 and CD8, CD9. We have Station 13 in West Long Beach. We also have a rapid response team that answers to immediate emergencies. They come out, they get there within minutes. Now, we do not have a facility out there that they could take patients to. That we do need. But again, we have issues with zoning. We have issues with space that we can't really put a big, nice facility out there that would be able to deal with emergency services such as a community hospital, which is not going to be able to do that anymore, or to take them over to Memorial or to St. Mary's, because we don't have that space. So we do have response teams, and we are doing the best we can with the services that we have.
Okay, thank you. And this will be our closer. And then after this, we'll give the candidates a chance to close out and also let folks know where they can find your information. So I apologize for not getting to this. I missed this. So we'll just do a round of folks, talking about the Wrigley Greenbelt, and maybe also, I see that there are a lot of folks interested in bringing more green space to the West Side and the 7th District. So in this order, we will go back up to the top and go Alex, Carlos, Roberto, and Raul. So Alex, we will start with you.
Yeah, like I said before, there's a lack of, green space in the West Side or in District 7 overall. Essentially there's roughly three parks overall. You could think about it, 3-4 parks. Now, one thing it's, aside from, enhancing these parks, is looking for abandoned lots, looking for whatever space there's available, and, bringing in the city to see if we could somehow transform it to some greener space, whether it's, dog parks or whatever it is. Aside, the thing is that we don't want to continue building apartments, buildings here in the West Side. We need more green space. So just forming a group or a team or a committee, to look for these spaces, and just to advocate for these spaces is something that we need.
Thank you, Alex. Carlos, you're next.
You don't need to go and look too far to address the issue of available land space. And we at the River Park Coalition have already done that homework. We've identified plenty of land that is available, either for purchase or for use. Let's see. We have the west side of Long Beach has about 1 acre of parks per 1,000 residents, whereas the eastern side of Long Beach has 17 acres of parks per 1,000 residents. The city promised to allow us to reach some sort of equity of around 8 acres, and that was 20 years ago. We're still back where we were originally. Now, I'd like to address the issue of the Wrigley Greenbelt, which I
Sorry, Carlos, you're out of time. So next is Roberto.
Thank you. As I mentioned earlier, it was 8-1 in support of a CEQA EIR study for the river park. I voted for it. I would have liked to have seen it, but apparently it didn't happen. It's private property. They could do what they want. I guess it's one of those situations where we need the green space, but we couldn't make it happen. But one of the things that I have done is I'm completely working with Get Willow Springs Park, make it a permanent park. Tanaka Park was slated to be developed into a housing development. I stopped that. I was able to get people to donate and help me buy Tanaka Park. And next week, it's going to be, or this next meeting of the council, we're going to make it a permanent park and part of the open space plan that we have for Long Beach. So I'm continuing to work with our Parks and Recreation Department, with our staff, to create more park space.
Thank you, Roberto. And Raul?
I agree with Alex and Mr. Ranga, what they're saying. Alex said that we should have that space for park for the dog, because we have a lot of dogs in our house, and a lot of our neighbors have dogs. I think in other place, I saw that there is a space for the dog in the park. They put a fence for the dogs only, so that the dog will be inside the fence in the park. I think that should be also given a priority, because a lot of the neighborhoods have dogs nowadays. And Mr. Oranga told us that the green park should be extended, and there's another project that he's doing, the city doing another park. I'm agree with him with that. That's all.
Thank you, Raul, and I apologize for that, folks. I did skip over Carlos previously, so I would like to allow you to have your minute back to address the Wrigley Greenbelt, and then we will be closing out and have final thoughts from the candidates. So we will go to Carlos.
It's a couple of years ago, my wife and I noticed as we were walking our dogs that there was tree demolition going on at the Wrigley Greenbelt. Many trees, dozens of trees were being cut down, mature, healthy trees. And the first thing we did is we called Mr. Uranga's office. We're going to look into that, was the response. Nobody ever did look into it. We got stonewalled. It took a long time for us to finally get through. And we also addressed the question with Public Works and with Parks and Recreation. So the city was conducting this demolition through its hired contractor, West Coast Arborists, who are notorious for destroying wildlife. And Nothing was ever done. At a community meeting, Mr. Uranga said, we will answer your questions, and no questions were ever answered.
Thank you, Carlos. Okay, so we will do our final closeout. Candidates will have 2 minutes for your closing thoughts. Please let folks know where they can, hear from you, where they can contact you, and what are your last thoughts you like to leave with folks. So we'll go in reverse alphabetical and do Roberto, Raul, Carlos, and Alex. So we'll start with Roberto.
Again, I want to thank East Yards for putting this together. When my candidates say that it's time for change, but they never give an answer as far as what their plan is for the future. When it comes to what I have done, I have a record, and it can be tagged and it can be criticized. But when you look at my accomplishments, I've instituted quite a bit of after-school programs. I've had economic development. We've opened up new businesses. We have, I've worked with community college and Cal State Long Beach to create a seamless educational program. I've helped frontline workers get better pay. During COVID, I had vaccinations go into the community, made sure there were bilingual people there to assist those who couldn't. We had COVID vaccinations take place for senior citizens. I have a record that is full of successes that we have been able to address many of the issues that we discussed here tonight. I have a record that I think is full of accomplishments, and I want to continue to pursue that record and grow it. There's much more that needs to be done. Obviously, I accept that, and I'm responsible for it, and I will work towards getting much more than we already have done now. We have a lot more work to do, and with your help and with your vote, I will be able to do that. I have a plan, and I have the relationships with people, with many supporters who support me, elected officials, business people, educators. They all know that when it comes to Roberto Uranga, he's a man of his word, and he's going to pursue it, and he's going to follow up. Thank you again, East Yards, for this opportunity for me to meet with you and to discuss the important issues of the day regarding the 7th District. Have a good night.
Thank you, Raul. And next, Raul, I'm sorry, Roberto. And please don't remember to drop any information that you all can share in the chat so folks can follow your campaigns. So next we'll go to Raul.
Again, my name is Raul Villasoto Haljorina. Just call me Raul. I'm very active in St. Lucie Church, and I have 5 organizations in St. Lucie Church. I'm a Bible facilitator and a worship leader. Now it's my first time to go politics. I'm a godly politician because I love God. I have seen Jesus and Mary and Heavenly Father in my life. I'm very active in the church. That's why I want to be active in my 7 district constituents. I will push the vaccination. I will talk to every house if the family has already vaccinated, and if there's none, I will push them to have vaccination, and I will push my 10 agendas. I will do it religiously. I will help the homeless people to bring to the shelter, give them food, shelter, clothing, and probably jobs so that they will not be homeless. There are 2 homeless shelters in Long Beach, one in Santa Fe and one in Anaheim. I used to go there to give free food to the homeless. Our Knight of Columbus and our charismatic prayer community group used to feed the homeless in our church. And please vote for me because I will do my best to be a better 7th District Long Beach. Please vote for me, Raul V. Haljorina. Thank you, and God bless us all.
Thank you, Raul. Next, we will have Carlos.
Thank you, East Yards, for the opportunity. All of us have great ideas, and Certainly, Mr. Uranga and his predecessors had great ideas at the beginning, but there's a big difference between an accomplishment of somebody who is in a position of power and somebody who's coming in. For most of us who have been involved as community advocates for years, whether in this community or in others, it is a labor of love. It is a labor of an act of dedication and sacrifice. It isn't a job. I have a job as an architect, but I don't have a job as a parks advocate, as an environmental advocate, as a homeless advocate. So please keep that in mind. Accomplishments when you're in office that's part of the job. That's what you do because that's what you get paid to do. You could, I think somebody dropped my information on chat, but I'll repeat it. Carlos for council.org. Carlos, the number 4, council.org. Or you can reach me on my cell number anytime. This is my personal cell number, not my campaign number, 310-989-0917. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos. And last, we will have Alex.
Yeah, I agree with Carlos in regards that, we all have good ideas and we all want to think that we're doing the best for the community. And that's why I'm running. I'm running to be part of the change. I want to bring back hope back to the city and part of the communities. I'm running to be the servant leader that, we really need in the West Side and in Wrigley. A leader that will give voice to those who think their voices aren't being heard. And that's one of the biggest things, we've lost trust in our system. There's no transparency. There's no, loyalty to the citizens of the city. So that's why I'm running. I'm 29 years old, so I have the experience of all my candidates. They have lifetime experience. I don't, but that's a good thing. I'm open, I'm flexible, I'm adaptable. I don't have all the money like they do. I don't have the resources or network like they claim they do, which I'm sure they do. But what I do have is the solution, and I don't have all the solutions, but what I do have is ambition and the willpower to fight, to fight for the changes that we need and to fight here in City Hall. So thank you guys. Thank you, East Jars, for hosting tonight, and have a good night.
Okay, well, with that, we thank you everyone for joining. We will probably post this on our YouTube as soon as I figure out how to do that. But again, we thank you. Just as a notice, East Jars is a 501c3. We are not supporting or endorsing anyone. We just want to host this so folks could have the space to share and listen and learn. So we thank you again. Hopefully you all have a good night. If you have questions, please follow up with candidates, or you can email me and we're happy to put you in touch with folks. So thank you everyone and have a good night.